Hello and welcome to the Two-Man Power Trip of Wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Paz. With me today, three very special guests. Of course, they're part of the NWA Crockett Cup, June 2nd and 3rd, down there in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He is one and only, the former NWA World Heavyweight Champ, Jax Dane. We got the Esquire himself, Chris Silvio, and Mr. Bulletproof, Blake Troop. Guys, welcome in, the Savages. What's going on?
Man, thanks for having us. Another beautiful day.
Jax, let's start with you. Let's talk about the Crockett Cup coming up. What are your thoughts and what are your chances?
Chances are 100% chance of ass whooping. That's the chances.
Boom.
The field is pretty diverse this year. It's 24 teams, tournament style, 2 nights. That always benefits the best athletes the best, right? I got Bulletproof, Blake Troop, MMA juggernaut, probably the best conditioned athlete in all of NWA. Makes my heavy lifting pretty easy because all I've got to do is lift heavy, right? So you have a thoroughbred like that with you, it makes life pretty fun. And then, of course, we got on the outside the smartest man in the business, Chris Silvio Esquire. So I like our chances, man. I like our chances a lot. Thank you for asking.
Chris, what's going on? What do you think? Crockett Cup. This is a pretty big deal. I mean, this is technically the 6th annual, but I mean, this has been going on since the mid 80s. There's a lot of tradition going on.
Lots of tradition. And John Paz, I got to call you out right away. First thing, it is the 3rd and 4th, the Crockett Cup. Not the 2nd and the 3rd. It's the 3rd and 4th. However.
Yes. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct. Yes.
It's all right, my friend. Yes. Look, I file a lot of lawsuits, but this is just a misdemeanor at best, brother. Yeah. No, I'm pumped, man. Like, look at these two guys. Right before we went on air, I hadn't seen Jax in a couple weeks. I just go, Jesus, Jax, you look like a monster. And Troop's over there probably drinking pickle juice, this crazy thing he does to get his unhuman-like strength. But, I just look at these two men and what they can do physically and then what they can do inside a wrestling ring. And with me out there, the most brilliant mind in pro wrestling today, and a wrestler myself, not only are we a recipe for disaster for everybody else, all other 23 teams, but I got to think if you have the betting odds stacked up, who's going to bet against two men that look like that, especially knowing that I'm going to be on the outside of the ring?
Now let's turn it over to Bulletproof. Obviously, Esquire, you're all correct. It's June 3rd and 4th. My bad on that one. You're right. I got a little excited. Bulletproof, what do you think of the chances, and what do you think of the team here, the Savages? What are your kind of predictions and thoughts on this big Crockett Cup?
I think, like Jack said, one thing you can always see in the forecast when the Savages are getting inside of the ring is going to be violence. There might be 24 teams at the Crockett Cup, but we plan on kicking all of their asses. That's no problem. That's just what we do. But what I will say about having a 24-man tournament, I'm used to tournament styles. I've gone to a tournament and had 12 matches in a single day and came home with 3 gold medals. A lot of guys come and they're good for 1, maybe 2. You want to throw 3, 4, 5, 6 matches at a guy?
Deep water.
You know, exactly. Some guys are not ready to go that distance. I've been there. Jack's been world champion. This is a depth of...
Hey, hold on. Not just been world champion. Chris, tell him. North American, national, world tag team champion, world champion, Texas NWA champion. If you go down the list, future United States tag team champion. And future NWA world champion again. And we'll probably throw the TV title in there too at some point.
Got you. And most importantly, Crockett Cup winner.
Jack's been there and done that. I'm the new guy. I'm the questionable. What's this kid going to be able to do? I'm used to going deep with guys, and I come to scrap. I'm putting in work. Jax is putting in work. Chris is putting in work. So one thing I'll tell you 100% sure to expect, violence. We're coming to hurt people. We're coming to make a statement. And, yeah, we want to win, but we want everybody to be scared of what we did to the people they saw us go up against. Bang, bang, Savages gang.
And, John, if everyone wants to know who Bulletproof Troop really is and why I have so much faith in him as a competitor, why don't you tell John why you're called Bulletproof?
Call me Bulletproof because of the way that I would just walk. So my name's Blake Troop. That's my government name. I picked up Bulletproof as a nickname because I would just walk through damage sometimes. Almost like Freddy Krueger or Jason, just coming through damage to try to get my hands on the person and break them in half. So coming to professional wrestling, I just dropped the Blake. Now it's just Bulletproof Troop. But I've been there, done that, and I'm ready to walk through some stuff, and I'm ready to drop some bombs and let some hand grenades start flying. They're ready for that.
Love it. Jax, what do you think about just the tradition of the Crockett Cup? Obviously, Billy does a lot of nostalgia stuff. He brings back a lot of the history. What do you think about it?
I think that's what makes the NWA so special, right? The ties to the history, the lineage, the historical content that the NWA provides to the wrestling world. Being a Crockett Cup, like you said, 6 times, it's just special. As special as being the world champion will be hoisting that Crockett Cup up in the air, man. Especially with the guys that won it last time, the Briscoes. You know, that's pretty cool that hopefully to carry on and honor what they were able to do.
Esquire, putting this team together, just give me the thought process of actually putting these guys together and actually being able to get them together.
Well, that's the harder part. The thought process is the easy part. Jax Dane and I have known each other for many years. I've been a huge fan of him as a wrestler for years. I know the guy can go. He's a beast. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, John Paz, but Jax Dane is actually the most decorated NWA champion in history. And that's not some fancy line I came up with to put him over. That's the literal case. So I've known him for a while. I started training Blake Troop almost about 2 years ago today. And Jax gave me the opportunity to be his representative, deal with any BS that he has to deal with the office, Corrigan, the NWA, help take care of his travel, make sure that he's got his protein shakes, his bars, all that good stuff. And I just came to him one day and I said, Jax, I got this guy who's a monster. He's a killer. He's a wrecking machine. And Jax is a guy who kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. You know, he does his thing, but he said, you know what, I'll give it a chance. Let's see if the guy's got game. Troop came in, he impressed. He did exactly what he was trained to do in MMA. He did exactly what I trained him to do inside a professional wrestling ring. And we came together as, in my opinion, the most destructive group in the NWA, bar none.
Bulletproof, tell us about the transition from MMA to pro wrestling. Like, obviously, you're under great tutelage there, but what's that transition like?
You know, the tag team thing's been a little different for me. I'm used to getting into a cage and fighting 100% on my own, where it's just me against the world. So it's been a different dynamic having a tag team partner to work with, because now we're one cohesive unit. We're not just in there on our own. And, like, if we're not working together, we're working against each other. So it's been a little bit different, but luckily I've had great instruction from Jax, great instruction from Chris. I'm a coachable athlete, so the transition hasn't been drastically hard. Also, it's not much different in terms of the techniques and stuff. I'm still trying to take guys' heads off. I'm still trying to snap people's arms. Still trying to put people to sleep. So the actual in-ring stuff's not too different. Just working with somebody has been an interesting variable, but I'm actually becoming a fan of it because I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot sitting under the learning trees that I've been sitting under. So I'm a student of the game always. So
what's great about it is, you know, Troop is new to tag team wrestling. He's not new to fighting. Dude's been fighting since he was a teenager. But Jax Dane, multi-time tag team champion, he's very familiar with tag team wrestling. I spent a good 7 years of my wrestling career as a tag team wrestler. So between Jax inside the ring calling the plays or me calling the plays on the floor, we're working together like clockwork 24/7. Jax and I understand tag wrestling better than anybody in the world. Troop's the most coachable athlete I've ever worked with. So when you put those 3 elements together, man, it's combustible. I just get excited thinking about it, and just walking home with that damn Crockett Cup trophy, holding it in Billy's face and saying, the Savages did it. You couldn't keep us off TV. You couldn't keep us out of the main event. We won the cup. And I was about to say an expletive, but I have more respect for you, John Paz.
Jax, you almost are reminiscent of the guys that won the first Crockett Cup. You're almost looking like, just body-wise, maybe like the Roadies, the Road Warriors. You know what I mean? I mean, geez.
That's a great compliment, and I appreciate that. I think a lot of the Road Warriors, Joe especially, I think a lot of him, Road Warrior Animal, with the relationship that I had with him. But I don't think it's quite fair to say my name in the same in the same breath as the Road Warriors, man. I mean, we all as
I object to that,
kids,
but continue, Jax.
as kids, when I was a kid, pro wrestling was larger than life, right? It was larger than life. Everybody was over the top. The Road Warriors were one of my favorite tag teams, and to be able to just for people to say, hey, you kind of emulate that a little bit. Well, that's by design. I mean, you grow up and you want to do what you saw when you were little, and now I'm getting to do that a little bit. Fortunately I had the opportunity to paint my face and wear some spikes from time to time with his blessing, and I was pretty lucky to be able to do that. So now it's my turn, just like you said, just like when I was tagging with Rob Conway and we were doing New Japan Tag League for the NWA and so on. I was Blake Troop and Rob Conway was Jax Dane, right? A former world champ and a world champ at the time, taking a young, big, strong athlete under his wing and teaching him the ropes. Now it's my turn to give that back to Blake Troop. And what better guy, like you said, he's the most coachable human being I've ever been around. Been around a lot of guys. And he'll take what you give him and he'll run with it. He doesn't ask for more than he can chew. So it makes it a really nice combination. And now leadership isn't the right words because he and I are equals as a team. But to be able to lead the charge a little bit and bring him along it's a great honor for me. And what a better guy to do that with.
I love it. Esquire, got to ask you this because your relationship with Billy seems like, I don't know, a little helter-skelter sometimes.
No,
He's suspending
Chris,
you,
Chris, don't talk about it, man. It's better for everybody if we just, Billy Corgan's a great boss. We work for him.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
William Patrick Corgan will be presenting on pay-per-view the greatest pay-per-view event you have ever seen called the Crockett Cup. It's going to take place next month on the 3rd and 4th, and it will feature the Savages, Jax Dane, the greatest heavyweight attraction of all time, and the most violent force in combat sports, Blake Bulletproof Troop. And, of course, with them will be Chris Silvio Esquire, Chris Silvio Conquistador, whatever I feel like going by that day. And Mr. Corrigan will present to the world the greatest pay-per-view spectacle you've ever seen when my Savages win the cup. How's that for an answer, John?
I like that. With that, though, Chris, and I know there's guys that work behind the stage, my buddy Dr. Tom Pritchard, Bobby Fulton, tag team specialists, so to speak.
And
do you get any sort of maybe some advice from those guys, Chris, like of like, what to do with your team?
Constantly. I get advice from them, not only what to do with my team, but what to do with myself as a wrestler. I'm getting back into the wrestling game after an injury held me back for a few years. So in addition to my work with these guys, I'm back to wrestling myself. So I'm constantly picking their brains for, okay, how do I make my team stronger? What could I do in the ring to be the very best? And I'll just ask them random questions sometimes, like, what do you think about doing something this way or doing something that way? And Bobby Fulton, someone I always go to. Dr. Tom's someone I always go to. Ricky Morton, another guy I always go to. Ricky and I've got a little history that is unresolved in some ways, and you guys might find out more about that later. But Austin Idol as well is a wealth of knowledge. If you're in a locker room with guys like that and you are not learning from them or picking their brain or talking to them, there's something wrong with you. You have to be stupid to not have, you have generations of people that know so much, and to not pick their brain would be ridiculous. Sorry, I got to mention one more person, Sinister Minister. If we're being real with you today, John Paz, as you requested, Jax Dane is the first client that I ever actively managed. We've been friends and we wrestled on shows together. But Jax is the first guy I managed, and then Blake Troop. So, I got a lot of advice from Sinister Minister as well. Like, hey, as a manager, what's the best technique to use? What's the best strategy? What can I do to make sure that my talent always, gets the best opportunities in the spotlight? And it was a whole different world and a big challenge for me going from wrestler to manager. But I think it's worked very well, and I'm just glad that my boys now have this stage to show exactly why we are Savage.
Bulletproof, I'm curious because MMA, wrestling, not which is harder because they're both very hard. But last year I was talking to Boss Rutan about it, and he did dabble into pro wrestling, and he was saying he didn't want to do it. He said it's harder than MMA, which is crazy to some to think, but he's one of the greatest of all time, and he's saying that he's like there was too many bumps and this and that. He's like I'm killing my back, I'm doing this. So not what is harder, but what about the transition MMA and wrestling? That wrestling maybe even harder than some people perceive.
Oh, I would say wrestling is significantly harder than anybody perceives that's not inside of the professional wrestling ring. I get asked all the time, what's tougher, professional wrestling or mixed martial arts? And they're both, I would say, equally tough, but they're different kinds of tough. MMA, I feel like you're taking a lot more smaller damage throughout the body. Where professional wrestling, it's a little bit more controlled where we're taking the damage. I know where that bump's going to happen, but you're having massive amounts of, I don't know if mileage, but massive impacts are going to start adding up to put on mileage to the body as opposed to a guy. But at the same time, if my knees hurt, I'm like, hey, bro, my left knee is a little bothering me, so take it easy on my knee. I can say that in pro wrestling. In MMA, you can't. Like, I'm going to go tell the guy, don't kick me in the knee. So it's different. I don't want to say one's harder or easier than the other. They're both equally hard in their own ways. I will say that there's nothing like taking a big bump in professional wrestling. Like, there's nothing like that in MMA. Like you can actually get popped in the face or kicked pretty hard or like eat a potato, but there ain't nothing like taking a bump. Ain't nothing like taking a bump.
Do you remember?
Your body, just like in fighting, will build a callus up to that, though. Like, for example, somebody who's never taken a leg kick before, people don't realize that, or even a regular body shot. People don't realize how much it takes it out of you until you've had one. Once you've had one, you can start kind of building up this toughness. And I'd say a very similar thing with taking a bump. The more of them you take, I would say, the more accustomed to them you get taking. Not that you want to take more, just like a punch. Like, I don't want to take more, but you got a little bit more of a callus or a body's ability to just deal with that, but equally hard, I would say. I wouldn't say one is harder than the other. They're both extremely tough.
Jax, did you have something you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, to me, the biggest difference watching MMA and being somewhat of a student of the game and obviously being involved in professional wrestling is you don't get paid by the hour in MMA. Get in and get out as quick as you can, as safe as you can. And in professional wrestling, everybody knows a little bit different than that. So that's to me, that's the biggest difference is it all sucks. It all hurts. It's all painful. It's all what it is. MMA, you get paid to get in and out pretty quick.
Yep.
Quicker you get in and out, probably the more money you make. Pro wrestling's not quite that formula.
And I can share this from a unique standpoint as being a coach as well as a wrestler and Esquire. Troop, when you came to the training camp, do you remember how many days you told me you wanted to train?
Oh, I thought I was going to train. I was like, I'm going to do like a private and then probably like 5-6 days a week.
So Blake says we'll do 5-6 days.
Sometimes, and I'm like, I'll be lifting.
I go, so I'm messaging him. I'm like, hey, Troop, you don't want to train 5 or 6 days a week. He's like, no, man, I'm tough. I can do all this.
Fight games, bro. You don't know.
So we quickly reduced it to 3 a week, which is a good medium, and then some private lessons. Another guy, John, are you familiar with King Mo?
Oh, yeah. Mohamed Lawal, King Mo. Oh, yeah.
Awesome dude. So I had the opportunity to work with King Mo a little bit when he was at OVW Developmental. I wasn't his coach, but he was someone that came to me for advice, and I just kind of explained little things to him. And I had his 3rd match ever with him. And it was like at some big like festival or something with a bunch of people walking around. And I just kind of said, hey, stick with me. You got this. Everything will be cool. And talking to him after the match, King Mo's like, man, this pro wrestling shit is harder than anything I've ever done with MMA. I was like, it ain't an easy world, my friend, but I think he's stuck around. I know he's still fighting. He's doing pro wrestling appearance, but awesome dude. Shout out to King Mo.
Great dude, too. Great
human.
I used to love his, not the gimmick, but, coming out in the crowd, just his persona in MMA was great. It's like basically he was like a pro wrestler in MMA. It was great.
Yeah, it is a gimmick.
Definitely way ahead of his time there with that.
Mm-hmm.
Jax, for the Cup, for Crockett Cup, anybody as far as tag team wise you're looking at? Because you got Adonis and Tyrus, who I think would be a nice little matchup for you guys. Maybe some revenge against the Country Gentlemen. What do you think?
Knox and Murdoch. I mean, when you, at the end of the day, you want to measure yourself against the biggest, baddest dudes on the roster, right?
Yep.
Knox and Murdoch. I mean, look at them. They're throwback. They're old school. They're ass kickers. They're what 80s professional wrestling was, right? With a modern twist. That's the two. For me, I mean, that's the two. Yeah, Adonis and Tyrus, both fantastic singles wrestlers, both of them. Murdoch and Knox, great tag team wrestlers. That's where I want to test their mettle. That's where we want to see how we stack up. I mean, I know Blunt Force Trauma, I don't think's been announced yet. I'm not sure if they're in, but they're in. If they're in, those guys, man. I mean, you wake up every day to do this shit, and you want to test where you stand, and you want to test against the biggest and the baddest. And Blunt Force Trauma, Knox and Murdoch. I mean, even the country gentlemen, man. Let's throw them in there. As much as I despise those two fake cowboys. I mean, you buy a cowboy hat and you pretend you're on a farm. That don't make you country. But you kind of got to throw them in there too.
Not to mention they hire crooked referees.
Yeah, I mean, but Knox and Murdoch, back to the question, Knox and Murdoch, man, I have so much respect for Trevor as a former NWA world champion, a Harley race guy, and Mike Knox's resume speaks for itself, right?
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is. So let's bang heads. Let's see what happens. It's crazy when 6'3", 245-pound Blake Troop is the smallest guy in the ring. Think about that.
It's insane.
Yeah, crazy, right? So let's get it done. Let's see what happens. Even if it's not the Crockett Cup, man. Let's just meet in the parking lot and fight a little bit.
No. You are getting paid anytime you step in the ring. You are in the traction. You are not fighting in the parking lot. Ain't happening on my watch.
Well,
pay you $10,000, sure.
What I'm saying, John. I mean, Murdoch and Knox, guys.
Esquire, who do you think? I mean, maybe La Rebellion. You got a bunch of tag teams from AAA. What do you think?
There's a lot of stacked teams, and I like where Jax is going with Murdoch and Knox, because if and when we knock those two guys out of the tournament, that's a huge statement. Part of what my job is knowing the weaknesses of all of these teams. I know Trevor Murdoch very well. I've worked with him for the last few years at the NWA, and the one thing I know about Trevor is when he loses his cool, and when he gets out of his headspace, that's where he loses. That's where he makes mistakes. And I might get a little heat for saying it, but that's why he lost the title to begin with. He's inside his head. So I know that. My boys will be exploiting that. Troop being the lightest guy in the ring is great because within 10 minutes, if it goes that long, Mike Knox, ass kicker, but his tongue's going to be hanging out down to the mat. He's going to be gassed and out of breath. And Troop's going to still be there flying, submissions, everything. So there's a strategy into all of this, and it's my job to know exactly what team has what weak point and how our guys stack up against that. Wrestling is all about highlighting the positives and eliminating any negatives. So you damn sure I'm going to have my research done. Yes, Knox and Murdoch. I want to see my boys face La Rebellion. In my opinion, La Rebellion has been the standout tag team in the NWA for the last 2 years. I'm a huge fan of them as wrestlers. I think they can both go. Size-wise, they don't match up to the Savages. Skill-wise, I think they're pretty darn close. So my personal dream situation is we meet La Rebellion in the finals, win the cup, show that we are the best team in the NWA, and Corrigan will pretty much have no choice but to give us a title shot against La Rebellion. If we beat the World Tag Champs in the Crockett Cup and win said cup, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, shout out to Pat Kenny, to think that the Savages are next in line for an NWA World Tag title shot.
Bulletproof, you got anybody in mind that you'd like to wrestle in the tournament?
Yeah, well, the competitor in me would always like to get some of the losses back. I've been pinned twice now in our tag team action, once by Magnum Muscle and once by the Country Gentleman. I'd love to get those back, but I'm not super concerned about getting those back because it's not like we weren't kicking the shit out of the guys before I got caught. So, like, am I, like, heartbroken over it? Not particularly, but I wouldn't mind getting that back. But I'd also be willing to come out the gate and go for some big fish like Murdoch and and Mike Knox, because you come out and you kick the biggest dude's asses in the park, everybody else sees that. And I'd rather come out the gate kicking some ass and people being like, man, I hope I don't get matched up against the Savages. You know, and like Chris said, beating La Rebellion in the finals would be probably, I think that could cap off winning the Crockett. I don't think there's a better way to cap off the Crockett Cup than by finishing the champions in the finals. But I just sit back. They point out who to fight, and I fight them. And fighting, I never got a pick. They told me here's who the contract's for. So, like, I'm ready. I'm locked, cocked, and ready to rock for the Crockett Cup. It doesn't matter who it is. Bang, bang.
Savage gang.
Jax, what do you think about Smashing Pumpkins and NWA? Kind of do a little touring together. Like, he's almost bringing the NWA with him. Nothing but positives, right? I mean, given how popular Smashing Pumpkins are.
Right on. I mean, that's the legendary true rock band led by a legendary true rock star. Despite our professional wrestling differences, I mean, you can't not give credit where credit is due. He gives me credit as a professional wrestler, even though he and I don't see eye to eye. So, yeah, legendary rock star, leading a legendary rock star band, drawing legendary crowds as a top draw in any festival or concert or anywhere in the world, right? I mean, they're the Smashing Pumpkins. So bringing the NWA along with that is always good. It's good for the brand. It's good for the wrestlers. Anytime you can develop events where my colleagues can make more money and have more dates, it's always a wonderful day because at the end of the day, we're prize fighters. That's why we do this. So, yeah, good thing. Exposure all the way around. I mean, kind of takes me back to when I was a kid and the what was it, the Rock and Wrestling cartoon?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they go together. The demographics are similar, hand in hand. I mean, it's just a natural fit. It is what it is. And you know, it does, as Pat Kenny says, it's not rocket science. Put the two together. So here we are, and I'm all for it and happy for everybody involved.
Esquire, give us one last big push for the Crockett Cup.
One last big push. Well, I don't need to give a last push because every single day, you could see the three of us right now on your screen. Every single day, we're training, we're preparing, we're getting more violent. We're getting tougher. We're getting meaner. We are getting hungrier. Trust me, by the time the third comes, Jax Dane and Troop are going to be like lions waiting to feast. As I'm talking about this, you see and feel the energy coming through my body because I'm so excited that I'm the man that gets to unleash these two monsters upon the world. This is the biggest match the Savages have had to date, round one of the Crockett Cup tournament. I don't even know who we're facing yet. But I know we're going to steamroll through them, and we're going to keep going until finally we're in that last match and we're holding that Crockett Cup above our heads. We're not here because somebody put us here or gave us a spot. We're here because we have earned every single thing in our athletic and combat sports careers. Jax Dane has earned every single opportunity he's ever had. He's been given the ball and ran with it. Blake Troop is new to pro wrestling. He's been paying his dues. He's earned everything. He's been in dozens of fights, competed around the world, has had a lot of pro wrestling matches recently. Myself, I started wrestling at the age of 10, started pro wrestling at 17. We are all students of the game and three of the most hardworking men you'll find anywhere on the planet. So when you join those forces together and put us on national TV, live on pay-per-view, you don't think the Savages are going to give you one hell of a show? Come on, man. We're the greatest show on earth.
Now, Blake, you kind of made the prediction, but let's stamp it. Is it going to be you guys in La Rebellion in the finals and you guys win or what?
I mean, the only thing that I can tell you could probably bet on is us in the finals. I can't tell you what La Rebellion's doing, if they've got injuries going into this, how serious they're taking fight camp. All I can tell you is we're taking it serious. And the Savages in the final, you can count on that.
Now, Crockett Cup is June 3rd and 4th, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Like Esquire said, that is correct, June 3rd and 4th. You can get it on Fight TV. You can order it there. Go to nationalwrestlingalliance.com for more information or nwakicks.com and get some more info there as well. Let's go around the horn. Jax, where can everybody find you, social media and otherwise?
At Jax Dane on Twitter, Jax _Dane on Instagram, J Dane Lemon on Facebook, and that'll sum it up.
Esquire.
You could find me on all platforms at the Chris Silvio. Keep it simple, easy, breezy for everybody.
Bulletproof.
Blake Bulletproof Troop, known for dropping warheads on people's foreheads. You can find me at Bulletproof Troop on Instagram, at Big Troop 22 on Twitter, or Facebook.com/Bulletproof Trooper. Head on over to bulletprooftroop.com. I'm about to put some fresh merch up. And I got one more prediction for you, John.
Yes.
It's going to be tap, snap, or nap, baby. Bang, bang. Lights out.
Love it. Thank you, guys. Everybody tune in to the Crockett Cup, June 3rd and 4th, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, NWA. Thank you, guys. Appreciate all the time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, John. We'll be ready.